Okay, so we are going to make a start. First of all, welcome everyone and thank you for joining us this Saturday evening. My name is Celia and I am the director of the Cambridge constituency of the Society of Spanish Researchers in the UK. This series of webinars that I'm going to introduce to you today are organized by 3 different constituencies of the Society, Oxford, Yorkshire and Cambridge. And in this series of webinars that will go through the next academic year, 2020-2021, we want to discuss different alternatives to academia. These are a series of talks, workshops and webinars that will be organized by Zoom with a need for pre-registration. And today we'll start with the first event of scientific entrepreneurship, but in the next events, we will also cover translational scientists, scientific communication, science policy, charities and research council, and also patents and scientist advocacy. So please, check our social networks to be updated on all these future seminars that promise to be very interesting. And with that, I really want to thank you to all the volunteers of the Society that are behind the organization of all these events. And of course, all our founders, the Fundación Ramón Areces and the OXA. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Marta that is going to chair this event today on scientific entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Celia. Welcome everybody to the event, A Conversation with Entrepreneurs. I am going to explain a little bit how it is going to work. First of all, the 5 speakers are going to do a short presentation about how they build their own companies. And after, we are going to have the Q&A round that everyone can write in the Q&A, or if someone wants to participate and show their face, you can raise your hand. This is a seminar event, and then anyone have the video activator and anyone have the microphone neither. If you want to participate, you have to raise your hand, but please do it at the end. After that, I want to say thank you everyone for give a little bit of their times on a Sunday, and mostly our speakers. And the last thing that I want to say is, like, Tom's staff couldn't attend, and instead of him is going to be Cristina Delgado. She's the founder of Scientist PolyMASC, a pharmaceutical PLC, and she's going to start the talk.
Okay, thank you, Marta and Celia, for the introductions. I'm going to share my screen so I have something behind me when I'm talking. So what I'm going to share with you in the next few minutes is the how a perceived failed experiment ended up leading to the formation of a successful biotech company. Okay, the 3 key elements that were necessary or that got together to lead to the formation of the company was 3 scientists who had developed a very solid patent portfolio, a medical school that was in need of big finance, and the beginning of the AIM market in the London Stock Exchange. So the multidisciplinary team at the molecular cell pathology unit at the Royal Free Hospital had developed a portfolio of with 2 patent families that dealt with the pegylation of proteins and liposomes. So pegylation is basically the attachment of a polymer, polyethylene glycol, to biological surfaces to make them more biocompatible. The financial director of the medical school established very clearly that this patent portfolio was the one that could give the medical school the finance that it required to stay afloat. And in 1994, it started talking to the 3 scientists and basically looking at the possibilities to raise finance through the patent portfolio. The reason they thought this was very powerful was that it was anticipated that many pharmaceutical blockbusters could be produced from this technology. Oh, hang on. So the strategies that we explored were to license to big pharma. It was very clear at the time that the technology in a very academic environment wasn't at the right development level required for the pharmaceutical industry. So we explored venture capital and flotation on the London Stock Exchange. That, as I said, was launching the junior market AIM. And basically, this last alternative was the one giving the best or the most control to the medical school and the scientists, and that's what it went for. Basically, AIM was looking for companies to start the market, and they really thought this was a very good bet. So for us, it was an opportunity not to be missed. Shortly after the launch of the company, the first thing that happened was the appointment of a business development department, and that was very important. The first thing they did was the branding of the technology. So they registered the number of names: ProtoMASC, LipoMASC, and VitaMASC, to give more visibility to the company. The flotation in the London Stock Exchange, I forgot to say, gave the company £5 million that was thought to be sufficient to produce the transition from the academic department to a biotech company. But in the business plan, there was also clear that we were going to need many sponsors to provide us with the biological material. ProtoMASC was very successful, and it was we established projects with CanGene in Canada and with many biotech companies in the US that were developing different proteins and peptides. We also established other collaborations with companies in the US and in Europe for LipoMASC, and we established a collaboration with Genzyme Corporation in the US as well to develop the technology, to apply the technology to viruses as well. So that was a joint development with Genzyme. So basically, 3.5 years later, the technology was at the point that was ready for further development. We explored 2 different options. One was to move the company to a technological park, and that was, we were looking at coming into Oxford. That's why I'm close to Oxford now. And the other possibility was to merge with a biotech company that had the expertise to carry out the next stage that we were clear that required different skills and which we didn't have. So basically, the outcome was the merger of PolyMASC with Valentis Inc. in California, and that was in 1999. In 2001, the technology was transferred entirely to Valentis. They were near San Francisco, in California. And at the end, what Valentis did was license the technology that had been developed by PolyMASC to raise finance to develop an in-house gene therapy product that they had acquired from the different companies. So ProtoMASC was licensed to Prolong Pharmaceuticals. LipoMASC was licensed to ALSA Corporation, which is part of Johnson & Johnson. And basically they required the license from a patent that was owned by PolyMASC to be able to commercialize a pegylated liposome they had produced containing doxorubicin, and which is still in use for cancer therapy. And basically that's the story. The work that we were doing in the lab, the day-to-day work, was essentially the same as what we were doing in the academic environment, and it was just we had to change the procedures. We were working in a much more stringent environment where everything was had to follow standard operation procedures, and we had to countersign all the records in all the books, and we had to do a very, very intense reporting to all our sponsors. So basically, I found it a very, very exciting adventure that allowed me to develop many new skills and raise up to much bigger challenges that I had ever encountered in my academic career. Patent applications substituted publications. Project proposals to biotech partners substituted grant applications. Presentations to partners substituted academic conferences. Same fund, different outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Cristina. Next speaker will be Clara Hardy, CMO and co-founder of OEMO.
Thank you. I'm just going to try and share my screen. Sorry. Okay, can you guys see my screen okay? Okay. So hi everybody, thank you for having me. As Marta said, I'm the co-founder of OEMO. I'm not from a very scientific background. In fact, I'm actually from a marketing background, but I think my perspective could be interesting here. So actually, I'm from a new materials startup called OEMO, and we basically support companies in switching out plastic packaging for sustainable alternatives. And we were featured in a number of different media outlets. So hopefully I've given you enough insight to make you want to listen to this talk. But where it actually began was with my co-founder Albert's research project out of Brunel University, London. And his thing was a need or want to solve a problem. And that was, if you use something for 5 minutes, do you need it to last for hundreds of years? And the obvious reason to that is no, because you get things like this. So I saw actually Albert's work project because he presented it in the Oxo Tower, and I was a marketing student at the time. And I actually came to him and said, you know, this is really great. You should definitely do something with this. You shouldn't just end here with this research project. So his actual thing at the time was to be able to replace the can holder rings, which I'm sure you're all familiar with because you probably all had a pint before, and replace it with a biomaterial that would actually disappear if it ended up in the sea. And this is where it began from a research project, an idea, and it began to shape itself into a business, which again was a need or want to solve a problem. Because for us as an impact startup, it was important to solve this problem, but we also know that the earth isn't our customer and the manufacturer who makes it actually is. I think this is like a big thing with projects that, well, startups and businesses that come from actual research projects, is that you want to change the world, but again, it could be the patient that you want to help, but it's not the patient who's actually the customer, it's the hospital. So it took us a little while to like kind of go away from this mindset and look at the business kind of point of view. So our business point of view on how to change the first problem is the other side of the problem, and it's the one that actually manufacturers, producers, and companies that use plastic was happening. So we did our research, and Albert actually let me do a business plan for him, and we found the considerable consumer social pressure and the government and legislational pressure to change it, which actually motivates companies to change from plastic and gave us a business opportunity that we could use our idea and implement it. So in a very, very short summary, we graduated university, we took the business plan that I did, we got investment for it in 2019, we grew our team because we were two co-founders who were relatively young, and we're getting our first contracts now to implement our technology with key players in the industry. I want to say that your idea is only as good as the team that implements it. Albert and me co-founded this out of university. We have specialties in industrial design and marketing. We needed somebody who was familiar with more biopolymers, so we amplified it, and we actually gave the CTO role to Greg, who's our current CTO, and we needed somebody to help us grow our idea beyond just the research and attract finance and marketing, which is Robert. And we continue to, outside of the university and research environment, being a startup, you don't have access to the labs. So we actually established collaborations with 2 Spanish labs, which is really important for us to continue doing our work, but still on a budget. And we also got a board of advisors who would help us take our idea and develop it in the new market, which is the green economy. Good ideas attract a lot of attention. We got a lot of, wow, what are you going to do with this? Can you do different things with it? And we're pulled in a lot of directions. And I want to say that this is completely normal, but you need to have a good vision of what you want to do with your research project. And the ways that we supported our idea and continue to grow it is by filtering this into 3 different groups. Accelerators that could help form our business and push it into something a little bit more mature. Government contacts who could help us make sure that we're in the same line as the legislation that was going to implement it and force our kind of technology to be used by new manufacturers. And industry partners who could actually help us develop it at a much faster pace without having to invest the capital ourselves into it and get it quickly to market. Business ideas evolve, and that's totally okay. I think that's something that everybody experiences. Just to give you an idea, we originally had a replacement technology for can holders, which is marine degradable, microplastic free, and non-toxic for fauna. Then we got a lot of industry feedback, which was, can you produce this in my current production line? Can you supply us in hundreds of tons? Can you make something rigid too? And we were just like, wow, this can be not only our research, but we can use our research to extend it into a different portfolio of materials. So we adapted it to current manufacturing processes. We subcontracted it, the production of the actual material to partners to meet high demands, and we made it tailorable for different packaging needs. So it's just an example of how you can pivot with the new industry feedback and not to be afraid of it. It's actually a really great source of opportunity. And this is just like to show how our business model changed. So we went for like a licensing IP, which reduces plastic kind of idea and model to actually taking on development projects and then doing the pellet supply. We also found new indicators on how to measure our impact. So we actually calculated that we could reduce about 50,000 tons of CO2 per replacement per year, which is really cool. But again, there were metrics we didn't have at the beginning because we were thinking about it in a totally different way. And it's something that learns and that you learn to evolve with your idea as it grows into a business. And then finally, just some reflections on how you decide that this is a business you want to commit to. Maybe you're at the point where you're not sure if you want to take this further. Some of the important self-reflections for me was, what are my reasons to be part of this? It's a chance to add value to society, independence, and also to make profit. People normally get a bit scared about saying, you know what, I'm going to make profit. It's a totally normal and okay thing to do. And in fact, if you want to continue development and R&D, it's an expensive process. So you have to be a profitable business. So I encourage all startups not to shy away from wanting to make profit. It's a good thing. And then before you commit, validate as much as you can, because your friends will probably tell you it's awesome because they love you and they love the work that you do. But make sure that you're validating it before you're, saying goodbye to a job and dedicating yourself fully to it. Ways that we did it was which significant people said they want this, and we talked to key producers. We actually talked to the main producer of the rings out of our university bedrooms before we decided to found the company. Then have you tested it, and has anyone as much as given you a pound for it? And again, that's the thing, that if someone's not willing to pay for it, they're probably not that interested in implementing it. But on the final note, something that really motivates you, because it's a roller coaster, has good times and bad times, but in the end, it's totally worth it if it's something that you're passionate about. And it's the difference between having saying it's okay at the end of the day than saying this is really not worth it. And yeah, that's my presentation. And if I can answer any questions maybe later or now, I'm not sure if there's time for questions, happy to.
Thank you, Clara. I hope the people have questions about that. They can do in the Q&A. The next speaker is going to be Fernando Alemán. He's the CSO and co-founder of Navega Therapeutics, Inc.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I think so, right? So my name is, thank you for the invitation. Actually, I'm really grateful that you allow me to share my experience and my journey. So my background is in pharmacy. I studied pharmacy in Granada, and then I did my PhD in Murcia, at University of Murcia, and then in molecular biology and molecular biology of plants. And then I came to the US for postdoctoral studies, first at UCSD, University of California, San Diego, in a postdoc of molecular biology and biochemistry, also working with plants at that time. And then I did a second postdoc. I was trying to get in academia. That's my journey. At the beginning, I was thinking in academia, and I think a lot of the listeners are still maybe in transition or maybe in academia still. So I was still thinking about academia. So I did a second postdoc at the Scripps Research Institute in San Diego as well, because I wanted to learn new techniques, and I changed a little bit my topic. I went to immunology, and through a collaboration, I met some people at UCSD that they had a method on how to evade some of the immune responses that gene therapies might trigger. And we published that. But with the collaborator at UCSD, it was a PhD student. She had another project, another idea on how to have gene therapy for pain. And that's what we tried to commercialize. It was, a long-lasting gene therapy for pain. Everything is coming from, I'm going to share a little bit of the pitch deck that we prepare. So the company Navega Therapeutics, we are developing gene therapies for chronic pain. I'm not going through all the first, the problem of pain in America. This is huge. The opioid epidemic in the US is killing a lot of people, a lot of overdose deaths, and a huge economic burden in the US. And I'm not going through this as well, but the key is that there are humans with a mutation that they don't feel pain whatsoever, a mutation in NAV1.7. This has been actually picked up by some even movies, some shows, people with this mutation that don't feel pain whatsoever. And this is actually bad, because when you're growing up, you don't feel pain, and some kids scratch their eyes and they end up being blind, and some other kids bite their tongues and they end up not talking well because part of the tongue is just chewed up. But what we were able to do is just to reduce pain, not to completely ablate pain. And how did we do it? It was the delivery vector is an AAV, which is approved by the FDA and EMA. But we are doing epigenome regulation with a variant of Cas9. Now that the Nobel Prize is for CRISPR, I think most people know what CRISPR is by now. This is a variant that doesn't cut the DNA. It's a nuclease null. So it still have the GPS function to go anywhere in the genome. But then if you add a repressor, you can go to this gene and just repress the RNA and protein expression. And very similarly, you can use zinc fingers to go to the same region of the DNA and then repress RNA and protein expression. The route of administration that we are using is invasive. It's intrathecal that goes to the CSF, but it has some advantages, which is that you lower the dose because gene therapies are very, very expensive. And if you go more localized treatment, then you can reduce the dose, and then the cost of goods, then the final price that will be for the patient. And you have a lower immune response because the CSF is an immune privileged space. And it is worthwhile because it's long lasting. We exactly don't know how long it's going to last, but at least we think it's going to last for at least a couple of years. Moving away from all the results that we have in our pitch deck, a little bit more into the business side, because I think that would be more interesting for the people listening. We did a competitive landscape. Obviously, this target is known by big pharma, that they tried with small molecules. The problem is that they are isoforms, and then they don't have enough specificity, all these small molecules. Antibodies can be highly specific, but then they bind to an open or closed conformation, and then they lack potency. And then there are RNAis and other technologies, chemogenetics, that they mix gene therapy with small molecules. And we think our approach is more elegant because it's just one gene. And instead of using RNA that has a lot of turnover, we go with DNA, and then it's long lasting. And the pharmacokinetics prospect, since there's no turnover of DNA unless the cell divides, we think they are better. This is something that you always have to talk with when you're talking with investors. This is something that you have to be ready to answer all these questions. This is what investors usually are the most interested with. And then the barrier of entry, after you know that your competition, you have to tell them how you are preventing others to get to your space. So we got 3 patents licensed from UCSD, from the PhD of the co-founder, of the CEO. Then you need to know what is the market opportunity. Everyone that is thinking about investing wants to know what is the potential of the company. What we are going to do, this erythromelalgia, these are patients that have the opposite mutation. Instead of a loss of function, they have a gain of function. So they have episodic pain. They feel during the day several pain episodes, and it's a orphan disease designation. There's nothing that works for them. So it's a really well validated target, and this allows us to have a fast FDA approval and get to the market. So in our corporate development, we got 2 grants, and then we moved to JLab San Diego, an incubator here, when we share equipment with other companies incubated. We hire staff with those 2 grants. We finish our rodent proof of concept, and then we are raising either more grants, but then also private money from venture capital to get to file IND. Contraction, those 2 grants are 1 million. We have others under review. We licensed 3 patents. We received a Defense Innovation Award. We were picked also by some news outlets, and that's our company Traction. We incorporated in 2018. I didn't mention that. It's a corporation. The reasons for that, if someone is interested, I can expand on that. And it's a C Corp. And why a C Corp? Because sometimes you can incorporate and you can make different kind of companies. Because of that, I can give you my opinion on what I learned. And then obviously I agree with Clara, the team is super important. It's also one of the things that investors look at the most. And that's one of the reasons why I think we had a little bit more trouble. You always think your technology is great. And when you talk with investors and they decide, okay, this is a little bit risky, maybe later on I will invest, but not now. We sometimes think that is the reason why we are first-time entrepreneurs and we don't have like a track record of doing that. We feel, at least here in California or in the US, that investors want the executive team to have experience in previous companies, which is kind of a chicken egg problem because you have to start somewhere, right? But this is the PhD, the one developing this therapy, the co-inventor of the patents. It was at Ana Moreno, and she was at Prasad Mali, one of the first to prove that CRISPR-Cas9 can work in mammalian cells. She was at George Church Lab in Harvard. Then we, for our board of advisors, we have zinc finger experts, pain experts, and first in human clinical trials, business experience as well. So I think more or less that's my journey. And yeah, happy to take any questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. Next speaker is going to be Pablo Postigo, CEO and co-founder of Frontity.
Well, so thank you everyone for having me. If you give me 1 second, I'm gonna share my screen. You should be able to see my screen now, right? Well, so I think I'm gonna be the only one today without a background in research or biochemical industry. I come from a software engineering background, but the other day when I was talking with the other speakers, I was thinking, what can I tell this audience that can be helpful for these persons that are thinking about starting a company or are curious about what's to be an entrepreneur? And my conclusion was that of course, there are some differences between different industries, but in the end, when you are an entrepreneur, we all have the same curiosity and the same desire to build things, right? So that's why I think it's worth sharing my experience as well, even though it's in a different industry. So, well, just to give you a quick overview of my background, I am a software engineer and computer scientist. I studied in Universidad Autónoma de Madrid and also in Sorbonne de Paris. And I started Frontity 7 years ago with my co-founders. As I said, Frontity is a company in the software industry. What we are building is software to make websites work better and be more performant on mobile devices. Maybe some of you are familiar with a technology called WordPress. WordPress is the technology running the 34% of the websites in the world. And what we are doing is to modernize this technology. We realized that this technology is the market leader, but at the same time is a bit outdated. WordPress has 17 years as a technology. So my co-founder and I, we decided to to start exploring different possibilities to make this technology more up to date, and that's what we're doing. I want to first share a bit of the roadmap and the story on all the steps we've taken, because most of these steps are going to be similar to many of you, even though it's in a different industry. So in 2013, 7 years ago, when I finished the university, I started to explore different entrepreneurship events, started to talk with different entrepreneurs, because I had this desire of building something and I had no connections in the industry. I didn't have any experience on how to build a company. I didn't even know what was the meaning of building a company, right? So I started to go to different events, and in one event I met a bunch of people. Some of them had already experience building other companies, and that was the place where I met my co-founders. And for the first 2 years, we were just doing some side projects. We were experimenting with different ideas. I had my regular job, 40 hours per week, doing software. And after 2 years of experimentation and doing different things, we found a way we found a product that had some product market fit, that had some demand and some users using it and willing to pay for it. And that was the moment when we decided to go full time and incorporate the company. So as you can see, from the moment we decided to do something to start our adventure until the moment we went full time and incorporated the company, it took us more than 2 years of experimentation, mostly because we were not full time. But in the end, this is a chicken egg situation, right? Like, you cannot go full time because you need some money and some salary to start going. But until you don't go full time, your idea is not gonna evolve until the point it gives you money, right? So I guess this is gonna be similar for most of you. And my advice here is to be patient and try to prove that your idea is strong enough to go full time for it before you quit your job. So once we decided to go full time, because we had the first, in our case, was the first users and the first income. In your cases, I guess that the validation will be different, but you will need a validation. What we did was to find some investment. And as we didn't have any contacts in the industry, we didn't know any investors, what we had to do was to ask for what it's called the 3 Fs, the family, friends, and fools investment. I prefer to call family, friends, and fans instead of fools. And we got a bit of money. In our case was 50K. It's important to mention that when you are building software, the numbers are much lower than when you are building industry products, right? But in the end, you also need a way to start. We also got some funding from the government, from the Spanish government. My company is based here in Spain, and both co-founders are Spanish. So we got some grants from the government that were targeted to entrepreneurs. And in my case, was an ENISA loan, but I know that there are other loans more focused on industry entrepreneurship instead of software or tech entrepreneurship. Another key point of our story was 1.5 years after we started, one of our co-founders left the company. We started being 3 people. And in February 2016, one of the co-founders decided to leave the company. And that was a huge crisis in the company. We had to decide if we wanted to continue the adventure or to stop there. And my advice here is that you should invest a lot of time choosing the right partners for the company, and aligning yourselves and making sure that you want the same things, and that all of you are aware of the huge effort and the long path that is ahead of you. As you can see, this co-founder left only 1.5 years after we started the company, but we knew each other since May 2013, so it was 3 years, and that was not even the very beginning of the path, right? So starting a company, it's a long path, and you need to find people who's gonna be willing to stick to the vision and keep pushing even when things are hard. And after this person left the company, my co-founder left the company, we were able to continue growing the business and finding the right product market fit. And as a result, we were able to raise the attention of some business angels. In my industry, the usual faces for investment are family, friends, and fools. Then we have business angels. Business angels are people who make money usually in the same industry as you, and they want to return their success and help new entrepreneurs. So these people is not only investing money, but they also have connections and knowledge, and they know how to grow your business or how to play in your industry. So we were able to attract the attention of 3 business angels. 1 year after that, we were able to raise our first investment round from venture capitalists in May 2018. That was raised 1 million euros, again from venture capital, another government loan, and in this case, we were able to attract the industry leader of our industry, which is WordPress. So we were able to attract WordPress as an investor to our company, which is great because it validates that our vision of this industry needs new technology that modernize how all this is built was validated. And as you can see, it took us only 6 years to get to this stage. It's now 7 years since we started, and I really feel like we are at the very beginning of our career now, right? After 7 years. So I wanted to share with you some key takeaways of what are the main things that I think can help you decide if you want to be an entrepreneur or help you if you have already decided to start a company. The first one is I've been thinking a lot. What's the thing that helps me keep pushing? And I wake up every day and I go to work and I feel grateful that I have this opportunity. And I think it's a mixture between the strong desire that I have to build something with an impact and an endless amount of curiosity. I think that curiosity is the gasoline. What I take for breakfast is curiosity. Then I also wanted to share that I didn't have any knowledge on how to build a company or how to run a company. Today we are 8 people distributed in 4 countries. I've raised almost 1.5 million euros. I didn't have any idea about what was a business model, how to hire people, how to talk with investors. That doesn't matter. If you have curiosity and a willingness to learn, you will find a way. Then I also realized that a key point for our, I won't say success, but that have helped us reach this point is that we have invested the same amount of time building the product, talking with customers, validating ideas, and creating a great product than making connections with people. In the end, you are not going to make this on your own. You need a lot of connections with investors, accelerators, other entrepreneurs. In our case, as I mentioned, we have been able to attract business angels, venture capital, industry leaders as investors. We have been also accelerated by Telefonica, Google, Techstars, which are one of the greatest accelerators out there. And we didn't have any connections. We didn't know how to attract these people. And we received a lot of no's before we got the first yeses. But making connections is really important. If you succeed, you need a lot of people to help you before succeed happens. And the last one, which is connections with entrepreneurs, I think is the most valuable one. Founder to founder conversations are the most helpful conversations, because of course your friends, your family, or your partners are gonna support you and try to help you, but they will never understand the challenges you are facing. And when you talk with other entrepreneurs, is that like you are talking in the same language, like they're having the same issues, they're feeling the same pressure, the same solitude. So I encourage you to find other entrepreneurs, or at least other people who's in the same stage as you are, that are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. Then I advise you to find the right partners. As you know, as you have seen in my case, we lost one of our partners, and that was a huge problem and a huge crisis that almost made us close the company. So find the right partners, because if I was 50% lucky, one of them was not the right partner, but the other one is the best person I can imagine to run this company together with me. And I don't think we could have built anything if I would have been able to build anything if I was alone. So find the right partners. And the last one is embrace uncertainty. I usually joke that entrepreneurs take uncertainty for breakfast. So it's not easy, but you have to learn how to enjoy the ride. So yeah, this is what I wanted to share with you. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer at the end.
Thank you, Pablo. The last speaker is Javier García Martínez, President and co-founder of Celera.
I can't hear you, Javier.
Hi, how you doing? Hope you can see my presentation. So last but not least, my journey. I hope you will all enjoy what I have to tell you. Everything is different. So let's start. My journey started when I landed in Boston. I joined MIT when I was a postdoc, and the only thing I wanted to do when I was there is publishing papers. And suddenly working with the person I was sharing the hood with, I realized what science was all about. And this person was taking his polymers to a hospital to test that, to treat people with diabetes. And at that moment, I said, wow, this is what science is all about, doing something in the lab that is helping people's lives. And then I was working on nanotechnology, that is my field. And then I have this big vision. As Clara mentioned, having a vision is extremely important. It could be plastics. In my case, was applying nanotechnology to oil refinery and the chemical industry in general. And what I did was to apply nanotechnology to increase the pore size of the catalyst we are using today. With that, we can convert really bulky molecules inside a catalyst, and with that providing not only an economic benefit to our clients, but also reducing the byproducts of this very major industry, mainly CO2 emissions. So with our technology, you get to really good advantages. You can make a business around it because it produces tons of money, and also because it's used better catalyst, then you produce less waste. And in this case, it's mainly CO2. I didn't wait to have a full-time job or to be secure or anything. I decided to leave MIT with all the equipment, all the beautiful labs that I have there, and going to Oklahoma. Sometimes people say, wow, it's very difficult to create a company in Spain. It's more difficult to create it in Oklahoma, and that is in the US. So this was the lab the first day I moved there, but the reason I moved to this place, I wouldn't call it a lab, is because this person. And I just want to emphasize everything everybody said today, the team, that's the most important thing. And this guy here, he was the hero in my field. This guy had 250 patents in my field and say, I'm going to leave MIT, I'm going to work with this guy because I want to make sure that this technology works. Basically, because the oil refining industry had endless resources and decades to solve this problem. I can't believe I was able to solve this problem. So this guy was retired, but very excited to make another contribution to the field. And he decided to work with me for free. There was no money involved. I didn't make any money. He didn't make any money. So we use it as personal money, and that's why we were using this very poor lab to test our technology. And with that data, we convince investors and build a proper lab. In this case, that was in Princeton, New Jersey, a much more fashionable area for entrepreneurs, and that was a proper lab when we were working for many years. It's impossible for me to explain you, even if I will tell you, you have to live through that, what it means to scale up a technology in the chemical sector. It's thousands of, actually tens of thousands of tons of catalyst that needs to require safety, security, raw materials, supply chains, a very complex industry. But we are very glad to be able to say today that several refineries throughout the world are using our technology and producing better transportation fuels while significantly reducing the CO2 emissions of this major industry. Yes, we need to go solar. Yes, we need to get rid of fossil fuels. But today we can use this technology to cut the CO2 emissions in a big, big way. And just to give you an idea, these are actual data from the biggest refinery in the US, Motiva refinery in Texas. And for this refinery in particular, we are making between $20 and $50 million per year just by replacing the catalyst and saving hundreds of thousands of tons of CO2 per year. Last year, we sold this company to one of the major in the industry, Grace, WR Grace, that are using not only our technology, but our brand, and now doing consulting for them. And it's a wonderful experience, not only to make a discovery, but also to see how that discovery is solving people's lives or improving people's lives. As I said at the very beginning, when I was at MIT and working with my colleague, I realized what science was all about. All of this I did in the US. And then when I moved back to Spain, I decided to create Celera. Celera is a program, it's a free program, doesn't cost any money, we don't take any equity, but it's a program to support entrepreneurs in Spain. It's something I wish I had when I was in Spain. It's a way to stop the brain drain that we suffer in Spain and also many other countries. Our idea is to give the best talent in Spain resources, connections, access to capital, just the right environment for them to flourish. Some of them actually at the end decide to work abroad, that's perfectly fine, but it is wonderful to see how investing in the future of Spain is also investing in the future of these people. And I want to emphasize my experience with Celera, mainly because very few people talk about social entrepreneurship, and is a wonderful thing. I also encourage all of you to consider social entrepreneurship, where making profits is not the main goal of the company, because then you have surprises like the one I'm going to tell you about, which is very relevant for this workshop. As you know, this year we have all been suffering from the pandemic in one way or another. And very early in the pandemic, I got a phone call from one of the guys that we have in Celera, and he told me, Javier, we are just going to be running out of ventilators. There is no way we can cope with the demand of ventilators. Very soon, a team of young entrepreneurs, scientists, engineers from Celera start working on this ventilator. And in a matter of a month, they went from a sketch design to a full-fledged ventilator that was approved by Spanish authorities in less than 4 weeks. They were able to raise €500,000, close to €500,000 in a matter of weeks. This has been a wonderful example of how you can do things on the spot and a different kind of entrepreneurship, what I call urgent entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship, guerrilla entrepreneurship. You know, when you need to solve a problem now with the resources that you have. As I said, now these ventilators are operating in different hospitals. Here it was a very special day for us when we actually took one of these ventilators and we supplied again for free to one of the major hospitals in Madrid at the peak of the pandemic when they were running out of ventilators. A very, very special day for us. And as you know, now the pandemic is It's also here in other parts of the world, like Latin America, and this is the day that the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ecuador received the ventilators that we sent them with collaboration of Iberia. And I hope this, everything I said at the end, it kind of makes sense, and also with all the presentations we had before. At the end of the day, what we had is great science in one side and many problems in the other. And there is a huge gap because there is very few people connecting that gap, walking that path. And I hope, and this is my vision, that academic entrepreneurs, science entrepreneurs, or engineer entrepreneurs, I don't care how you call them, but the people who actually made the discovery, the new software, the new ventilator, wherever, is going to take the risk to create a company, a venture, to raise money, and if not going all the way to put this in the patient's bed, at least reducing the time or the distance between the discovery and the final application. This is a guy that I actually know. I actually met him at MIT by the name of Kevin Rose. He's a very famous now venture capitalist in the Bay Area. But when we both were younger, I met this guy, and that was his magazine cover, right? How this kid made 60 million in 18 months. And that's almost like the definition of the entrepreneur. A guy, very young, making as much money as possible in the shorter period of time. My vision is to change that. My vision is to put science at the core of entrepreneurship, because we have so many big problems that I don't want another gray guy, and this guy is very smart, to devote all his talent to create another app. And that's what he has been doing all his life, creating new apps and making a lot of money. We can put all that talent to solve our big problems, then I think we will be in a better shape. And in order to do that, we need to change education. Yeah, you can think that this is an exaggeration of how my discipline, chemistry, is taught today, but it's not. We are still using the old-fashioned way of one person speaking to a large audience, like if everybody in the audience will be the same, with the same needs, with the same understanding. And as you see, it's not very different from the way we were teaching during the Industrial Revolution. And that needs to change. We need to understand that everybody is different. They actually being normal is boring, that we need to encourage diversity. It's only through that the values that Pablo was talking about, like curiosity, uncertainty, these kind of values which are defining our time, are going to be embraced by the new generation of entrepreneurs. And just to end, for those of one actually going through your PhD, I just want to give you a little bit of the picture of how it looks like after a few years. Most of the PhD students in science end not working in science at all, working outside science. And even within the ones that work in science, a very, very small percentage end working in academia. Become a professor is just a rarity, something that is very rare, almost never happen. So let me end by giving you this very personal thought. Being an entrepreneur have made me a better educator. I'm a scientist, I work in the lab, I teach my students, my PhD students. I do believe that by going through the experience of creating a company, I learned some skills, some experience, some way of looking my own business, chemistry, that students can grab. And I can excite students because what I tell them, it's more credible. I did what I'm preaching in a way. And also, that's one of the things I want to say, that being an entrepreneur have made me a better academic, a better teacher, better educator, a better scientist, and also that we need the best science being applied. There's so many papers that go nowhere that we need this new generation of science entrepreneurs that are willing to take the risk to take best science into practice. But it's not for everybody. I'm not encouraging everybody to become an entrepreneur, only if you are convinced. But I'm sure we can discuss more about these things during the Q&A. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Javier, for the presentation and your thoughts. Cristina have some slides ready about DRO. Maybe you want to share them. Also, you don't have the audio on.
Sorry. Yes, I'm just putting it. Let me see if I can. That's the one. So basically, Carlos Cosculluela of Fundación DRO in Madrid was going to be to join the roundtable to add in the discussion. And actually, I mean, he was in one of the slides that Javier showed with Celera. And what I have is a couple of slides showing what they do. Is a fundación in Madrid, and basically they are encouraging scientists to take the step into the to convert the idea into a company. And basically, hang on. And basically, they have a workshop. If you go onto the website, that's happening on the 1st and 2nd of December this year, where they have basically, they give you a very detailed description of what to do step by step. And I think, as Pablo said, that was my experience as well. I mean, back in 1995, this was, nobody had experience in the UK. I mean, there was some experience in the US, but not in the UK. And I wish I had somebody like DRO to take us step by step. And so basically that's the website. I can probably copy that onto the chat if you want to grab it. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all the speakers for all the talks. And well, just to remember the audience that they can ask some questions in the Q&A of the Zoom event. And I don't know, Celia now.
Yeah, thank you. I just reiterate what Marta has just said. Thank you very much to all the speakers for your inspiring and insightful talks. We are going to start with the live Q&A. So yeah, just remind you, there is a button at the end of the screen that's Q&A, so you can type your questions there and we will ask them to the speakers out loud. If there is any follow-up question, you should also see an option to raise your hand where we will be able to open your microphone. So while we don't have any questions yet, well, first question actually. Okay, this is a question from actually one of the organizers, from Beth from Yorkshire. She says, thank you for all your presentations, very interesting. Clara, how complicated it was to actually find the best candidates, collaborators for your team at the beginning?
I think that it's a really great question. It took us quite a long time because we knew that we were going to be quite a small team. We couldn't afford to hire all the roles we wanted to. So we had to really look for people who said something that projected a future to us that we were in line with. And I think that's the conversation that that was mentioned before, that we all want to have the same aligned vision, and that really helps with pushing a company. So it took quite a while, but we got the best candidates. It actually took us I want to say about 5 months to find our CTO. So it was like quite a long time. But I think it's definitely worth waiting before you commit to somebody, because it's especially at an early stage, it really makes a difference to the output. And if you go very quickly and hire somebody who isn't the right kind of person, you then have to go and do the work anyway again. So it's definitely worth doing it right the first time around. And the second part to that is finding the right partners. I think that there's no like rule to find it. There's a lot of factors like what they're willing to offer, and also the kind of gut feeling. I think you should definitely trust your gut feeling, especially at the beginning. People will generally give you a good or bad vibe. And I want to say that even though it sounds like something quite superficial, our gut instinct about our partners has been pretty right from the beginning. So I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Clara. Maybe while we have more questions coming, I can just maybe ask a question for all of you and we can make a round of answers. I know you have given plenty of advice throughout your talks, but maybe if you can pick one piece of advice to give to someone that has an idea and doesn't really know where to start. You can think about the UK, you can think about Spain. What's the first step, the first thing that they have to do? And maybe we can start, as I have you know, that Cristina.
Unmute. Well, I think as it has been mentioned during the presentations, being with the right partners is essential. In my case, the 3 scientists, we had worked together for 10 years beforehand, and we were very good friends. We knew each other very well. We knew everybody's strengths and weaknesses, and that is very, very important. And then, as Clara has just mentioned, is hiring the right people. We had 2 bad experiences with the business development directors. It took us a couple of years to find the right one, and that wasn't good. It took. So I think that's very important. And as Pablo said, it's just having curiosity and going for it. And you have to work 24/7, and you don't know what you are going to find the following day. I mean, you find it's more unpredictable, and you have to be prepared for it and enjoy it. And that's essential. I mean, I was very, very privileged to be paid to do what I was enjoying. I mean, I did love going to work, and that's very, very important.
Thanks, Cristina. Maybe we go next to Clara.
Yeah, 2 advices. Well, actually, I'm going to stick to one because I think it's probably a better one. There's a lot of grant money out there to impulse your project, and people normally go the investor route because they think it's going to be quicker. But I would say that there's a lot of ways to fund your startup without giving a lot of equity away. People normally at an early stage, they see you as more, like wanting to do this and more vulnerable. And a lot of mistakes that people make at an early stage is that they give a high percentage away of their startup for a very low, well, relatively low amount of money to start the project. And I know it's very tempting, but I would always wait to see if you get a better deal, because you might be selling yourself short, and to really trust in yourself and trust in your business and know it's worth before sending it away.
Thanks. So we go next to Fernando.
Yeah, piggybacking in that comment, I agree that grants are really important. That's actually how we started. It was applying for grants very early on, almost at the same time that we did the incorporation, even though we had our other jobs, but we applied for a grant because the cycle of grants is kind of long, but there's quite some money there. And I agree that's a really good idea. For me, the most important part is, again, I think we are all stressing the same part, is finding a right co-founder. The right co-founder also would validate. It's a little bit of validation that someone that believes in your idea, because sometimes a company is not a one-man job. You need a lot of people, because there are so many things to do, so many parts of the business that you have to take care of. So for me, that would be the most important part, finding and taking the time. I think, I don't know if it was Clara or Pablo who take the time to find the right one, because otherwise, for me, that's the most important part. Long story short.
Thank you for stressing that. Pablo, and then Javier, and then we move to the next question.
Great. So first, I agree with what Cristina, Clara, and Fernando said. Like, the right partners and the right funding are key. But I'd like to take one step backwards, and I think there is one thing which I don't know if it's more important, but comes first, and is choosing a challenge, a vision that is worth 10 years of your life. All the rest comes after that. So take time and think about what's the challenge you want to solve, because if it's the right challenge, it's going to take 10 years, and 10 years are not cheap, right? So I'd go with that one.
If I can take even one step before that one, because you may have a good problem to solve, you may have a good partner, but do you have a business? The first thing I would say is market validation. As soon as you can, try to find a potential client and tell him or her, are you willing to pay for this? Otherwise, it could be a science project, especially hearing a lot about grants. I don't like grants to start companies, but that's just personal. I prefer private money because they give you, it's a smart money. They will give you contacts, it's industry money, but that's just based on my experience. First thing, market validation. As soon as you can, don't wait to have a perfect product. Just talk to potential clients. And if you can afford it, sell your first product or whatever, even if you are losing money, just to get some reference, somebody that your investors can call and say, is that working? Is something that should invest in? The sooner you talk to investors, to potential clients, the better.
I'd like to add to what Javier just said, that this is one sentence we repeat ourselves all the time in our company, which is done is better than perfect. Perfection is an enemy here. So go as lean as you can and ship as fast as you can.
Yeah, I completely agree with Javier as well on that. And as you saw during my presentation, we had loads of partners that helped us validate the technology very early on. And that was very important. We didn't realize how important that was then, but it was. And it was very clear to, at least to me, that we were never going to have the perfect product, and it was clear that the window in the market was limited. It's not there forever, and it's not expanding. So you have to be aware of that and just go with the best you can do. It. Something is better than nothing.
And also because of our
about the market,
because of our audience, let me say the same thing with different terms. A business or venture is not a science project. So you may love your technology, but if you're asking for somebody else's money to run that business, please make sure that you can make money out of that. It's very important. This is not research. Even if you love the technology, if you think that is going to solve all the problems, make sure that you can make money out of that. Because if you hire people and you don't have money to pay those people's salaries, it's a very difficult situation to stay in. So make sure that you are able to make money, and always under promise and over deliver. When you're asking for money, keep that in mind. under promise, over deliver. Extremely important when you're asking for somebody else's money. And it's not a research project. It's not to improve your CV. This is for the faculty members here. So maybe you're a very famous professor, you already have 100 papers, and the only thing that you don't have that other people in your department have is a venture, is a startup. Don't push your students to start a company just because that's what you want in your CV. Once again, company is not a research project.
So about the market validation, I also agree it's really important, but it's not the same. It's not as important in every industry. I think it was Henry Ford who said, if I would ask my customers if they want a car, they would say, no, I prefer my horse. My horse is, why would I want a car? So sometimes they didn't have the vision of what cars are going to be good for. And they were expensive, they smell like gasoline, they didn't want a car. But
yeah, but Fernando, I'm not suggesting to ask your potential clients, what do you want? What I'm asking you to tell your potential clients is, will you buy this? Maybe that's something they don't feel they want it now, but it's a compelling sell. If that's a blue ocean, would you buy this? How much you will pay for it? Maybe it's something that they will not be requesting, something that they never thought of, but it's very attractive. And yes, the ideal scenario will be to be in a blue ocean, you know, a new industry that you are creating. That will be even better. So yes, don't use your clients to make a survey. Just go there with your product and ask them, you know, how much you will be willing to pay for it.
Yeah, and if someone is developing a drug, no pharma company is asking the patients, hey, do you want a new drug that is better, that we think is better? So sometimes I think it was Clara who mentioned you have to know who is your client, because maybe the patients are not the clients. So maybe it's the doctor that is prescribing the drug. So you maybe have to ask.
In your case, Fernando, your clients are the hospitals, and because you are in America, the insurance companies that pay for
exactly.
That's your client, because they are the ones who have to pay for the product you are developing.
Exactly.
So
it took us some time to realize who is the client of a drug company. When you're developing a drug, at the end is partially the doctor who is prescribing, but it's also the insurance company. And then is what is the price that at the end you're going to have, because gene therapies are very expensive. And some of the investors that we are talking with, they are actually complaining about that. So it's like, okay, is there really going to be a market for this if people needs to pay a lot of money? Things that you have to take into consideration before. But if you have the vision, if you think that this is going to work, maybe you will have to break some walls, because gene therapies are really new. We have a problem in manufacturing as well. So we have to overcome a lot of issues because this is really new. But again, Henry Ford wouldn't have developed a car if he would have been asking the clients if you want a car or not.
But Fernando, if I'm not mistaken, you are never going to sell the drugs to the patient, right? I don't think you are willing to take all the way your company, all the way from where it is today to be able to sell the drug. I guess you are willing to sell your company to a major pharmaceutical company, right?
That's correct. That's another thing that you learn in this way. At the beginning, you're thinking of people to help them, but then reality hits you and it's like, okay, you need so much money that you're not going to make it until the finish line and get an approved drug and help the patient. So at some point, a big company is going to acquire you if you do the right things, if you develop the right product. And this is another thing that for us, I feel like we have to spend some time on doing it very well. The design of the drug has to be very well designed. So instead of moving forward, so some of the advice I feel like a drug company has is a niche into the comparing with other companies. We're not going to have revenue. We won't have any people paying for us.
You're not going to have a product. You're just going to make. You are not going to have a product. You're just going to make your company attractive to a mayor.
Exactly.
So that mayor will buy you because he seems to them that is worth whatever money to take it to the next step. So
exactly, it's building
very unique business
for the company as you get to the next step in development and you are closer to get to the market, then your company is valued more. So you create value even if you're not selling anything and you don't have clients and you don't have things like that. So it's a little bit different, and I think that's why these kind of webinars are very important, because people learn that it depends where you are. You need to take care of some things and others. And yeah, I'm sorry. I need to leave now. I'm really sorry about that. I thought it was going to be at 1 hour, but I apologize. I can answer some questions later on, but sorry about that.
Problem, but thank you very much for the really nice discussion that you have had. Maybe we can send you the questions that might come for you.
Thank you, Fernando.
Yeah. Okay, so our next question comes from Maria Pinno, and it goes, well, she first thanks all of the speakers for the really interesting talks. And the question goes to Clara. I do not know if it's possible to answer this or if it is part of the secrets of your company, but your product is a commodity product. How do you overcome the price of common plastic, which is very low, less than £1 a kilogram, with your technology? That is the problem that I found when working in my previous company, the lack of interest because of the high cost of the technology.
It's an excellent question, and part of a lot of how we work is thinking always about cost. It's true that biomaterials are generally more expensive than plastics. That's because plastics are produced on a huge scale. But the way that we position our product is that we position ourselves against other biomaterials. And in fact, we are very competitive with other technologies that would substitute plastic anyway. So our first goal was to lower it as much as possible, so that if manufacturers had to change to something, it would be the best price and our material would meet that best price. So that's one way we did it. And the second is the additional value that we can offer to manufacturers by opting to our material. So the first being that some applications, and that's where our ties with government and learning the legislation are super important. Some applications for plastic will be completely banned in some territories. So that's where our value comes in, because our application with our material will not. So that's the added value that we can give. So guaranteeing that they can continue to trade in current markets, which is why it's so worth when you're thinking about launching this, is all the different factors that are going to impact the success of your project. Legislation in this case really helped us be able to have the price that it has, but it can go in the opposite way, that they decide to ban a certain thing that you're working on. So it's something that I would advise really studying.
Thanks, Clara. Okay, I'll ask the next question. This is from Ruben Gonzalez. He thank you all for the presentations, and he has a question for all of you, but he says that Javier already pointed out something related. The ambition of scientists normally is to make science and publish as many papers as they can, but it is not unusual at all to see the wishing of creating a business. Do you think it is needed to have business education in all scientific studies plans?
I disagree with the first point. I don't think the goal of science is to publish papers, to answer problems, and that's great. And that's what makes us human and why we make discoveries, right? To solve problems. But during our education, as Antonio or Ruben is saying, is that we don't get encouraged at any point to start a company. We don't get any education about that. We don't know anything about business plan, how to create a team. And at the end of the day, people feel that the natural thing for them to do, especially doing a PhD, is just to become a professor, just to keep publishing and you know, all that publish or perish dilemma, right? So again, I don't think that every scientist should be an entrepreneur. Probably just a very small fraction. What I'm saying is that science education needs to change if we want to contribute to solve our biggest problems. because if our science ends only in papers, science is not going to have a major role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. We are not going to be a major player, and we are not doing it alone. That's the other thing. It's not only that scientists are going to start the companies of the future, but we need to be part of that. We need to be part of this new wave that is changing industries all around the world. We need to be part of that. And my advice here, the only thing I'm saying is that during science education, but first science education needs to change in a big way, but I don't have time to get into that. But what I'm saying is that during our experience as a undergrads, PhD students, and postdoc, it's very rare that we get to a seminar like this one where people are encouraged just to consider start a company. But as a human beings, people with problems, it will be great if science, in addition of solving big problems, which is what science does very well, there will be some of these scientists that will be willing to, as Fernando said, just walking maybe one step, two steps, to third step for the large company to be interested into that solution. Many times people come to me and say, Javier, I made the great discovery ever, and I feel very frustrated because these big industries, these big companies, they never come to me to apply this discovery, to take this discovery from me. Well, if you are not taking the risk just to make one step, how on earth are you expecting that the big industries are just going to take all the risk for you? So I think that to close this gap that I was trying to convey with that image, we need to walk a little bit of that path. I mean, the discovery side of the problem, and then, you know, the industry, the benefit, the economic side also need to walk a little bit so that gap can be narrow a little bit. So with that, we will shorten the time from discovery to application, which is so important. I mean, just for the vaccine for COVID-19, I mean, just to have an example. Whatever.
Thanks, Javier. Does anyone else want to add something? No?
Or discuss?
Yes, please.
I may be wrong in many of the things I'm saying. This is just my opinion.
Again, if anyone from the audience wants to follow up, discuss, please let us know. We can activate your microphone. And in the meantime, maybe I give you the next question, Antonio.
Okay, so the next question comes from Tai Yang and says, this is for everyone. If you have an idea, how would you start without any connections? So probably they mean like the very, very first steps.
I can answer from my experience, even though I am from a different industry, as I already said. I didn't have any connections either. And I remember my first years, like from 2013 to 2015, I attended every event I could. As an attendant, as you are doing today, and also as a participant when I could. There are so many events that are for people with ideas that want to start or want to learn how to start. So that's how I started to attend. I tried to attend every event I could, sometimes once per week or even twice per week, because in those events is where you find the people who will become your partners or will become founders themselves, and in the future will be able to help you with connections. Happy coincidence is that many of the people that I met in those events, or not even met, I was in the audience. They are now my investors, and some of them are also my friends. And it was just by time. If you are pushing in one direction, which is building a company, there is not so many people. There is not so much people doing that. So in the end, it's a small world, and you all get connected, and you end up meeting people who are part of these other companies or investors that can help you. So just by going to events, I was able to build my network, and I don't think I did anything special. Just going there and connecting with people. I know it's a bit harder now with COVID, but I'm sure that there are ways to connect with people even online.
Yeah, I completely agree with Pablo. We went to what was at the time biopartnering conferences in London. I believe is now BioTrinity, and that happens every year. And there are lots of people from biotechs in Spain that come to this event. I mean, obviously it's not happening now with COVID, but it's probably happening online. And also, I mean, if you are in an academic environment, your first port of call will be there will be a transfer department in the university to a technology transfer department, and I think that will be the first port of call. And in Spain, you can contact Fundación DRO, and they will help you and guide you and find you partners if that's what you need at the time to develop the initial idea.
Once again, try to learn as much as possible from the industry, and also ask yourself, can I make money out of this technology? And if you can call people, maybe your PhD advisor, other people at the university, just make sure, again, a very simple, calculation. How many of these do I need to sell to be able to make X amount of money? As simple as that.
Okay, so maybe we'll go to the next question. I can actually answer two questions that are very related. One is for all, one is for Pablo, but I think you can answer all of you. You can answer both. So both Sergio and Bette, thank you for your presentation. Sergio says they were really inspiring. Just out of curiosity, what kept you going in the days or weeks where things were not going as expected? And then also Elizabeth is also asking to Pablo specifically, but I think you can all say something about that. What's the most difficult part in your journey, in your adventure, and how have you overcome it?
So I'll start, but I'm sure everyone has something to say here. For the first question from Sergio, like, what was this thing that kept us going when? Sergio says in the days or weeks when things were not going as expected. Sometimes it's even months. And I think it's what I said. If you choose a challenge that motivates you, that is worth 10 years of your life, then this very same challenge, this commit to solve this challenge, I think is the thing that helps you. And there are other things. The other one is curiosity, as I said. This sensation of always being learning and improving in all the levels, as a person, as a professional, as a boss, as a partner. That has helped me a lot. This sensation of being evolving all the time, and also feeling the gratitude of having this opportunity of enjoying what I'm doing. There was one day when my partner took me. We were in a restaurant, and I was really stressed because we needed to close one investment round, and it was being really hard after 6 months of rejections from venture capitalists. So imagine 6 months of pitching and getting no's. And my partner told me, Pablo, we've been here 7 years, and this journey is a success by itself. Like, and I learned how to, and from that day is when I learned how to enjoy the moment. Like, this is not a race. This is not, we are not doing this because of the end. There is not a final, it's not only because of the final goal, but also because we have to learn how to enjoy the path, right? And since that moment, I kind of feel relieved, and I was not having this pressure above me all the time. And after that, I got 1 yes from the industry leader, as I told you. So it's a mixture of many things, but I think the biggest one is like the challenge has to motivate you, and you have to enjoy what you are doing. I think those will be my 2 advices. And I will answer really quick the other one. I will leave the other speakers. I'm sure they will have something to say. Elizabeth is asking, in all those years, what's been the most difficult part? And I think the most difficult part is to find what is called product market fit, right? You have this product, you have the market, and you have to make them fit. And this product market fit, it's not a static point because the market evolves, new competitors appear, the demands are different, the regulations. So finding product market fit, I think, is the biggest challenge we have faced, and we are still facing it because the market moves and your product has to chase that. So I think that's the biggest challenge.
I think in our case, the biggest challenge we had was, I mean, apart from having to call on many, many doors to get all the projects that help to validate the technology, it was to realize when was the time for us to leave our baby, because that was our baby, and put it in the hands of the next company that was in the position to develop. That is always very, very hard. And it wasn't particularly hard in my case, but one of the partners found it extremely, extremely difficult. And that made the merger with the company in California a little bit more difficult. It did happen at the end, but you need to let go. And that's very important to realize when you've reached the point where you have to let go.
Thanks. Maybe Clara and then Javier, or the other way around.
Clara, go ahead.
Okay. I think well, obviously my entrepreneurial journey is way shorter than anybody else's. And I think maybe this will apply a little bit to our audience is sometimes at the beginning you have a lot of self-doubt and am I really the right person to do this? And, you kind of, sometimes you might feel like a fraud, right, to yourself. And I think it's really important to feel that, it's not all on you to do it. You can only offer the best of yourself. And you're going with good intentions, and then, to have your vision clear and stick to it. And that, you learn from everything. It's a learning curve. You're going to get a lot of no's, as Pablo said, you only need one yes. So think about the yes, and just don't get demotivated on the way, and just continue fighting for what you did. I mean, you decided that this is something that you want, and just don't look back and continue and learn from your experience and stay humble and listen to advice.
So for me, what keeps me trying is that I feel privileged. So much money, this team, this technology. Look around. Definitely, you are privileged that people trust you with so much money, that you have a great technology. It's going to be the best education you can get. It's going to be a great opportunity. It's going to help you grow as a person, as a professional. So yeah, it's the best experience. I mean, being an entrepreneur these days, I know it's tough. It's like a wave, it's ups and downs continuously, but you need to feel that you are privileged because you have so much money, so many resources and a great technology. And the most difficult thing is to fire people. And very important, fire the people who are not contribute. Fire fast, don't think twice. If you have dead weight in your team, it's going to be really bad. So creating a perfect team is all about getting the best possible people, but also firing the people who are not contributing. Is the toughest thing. If you have not fired somebody yet, you don't know what I'm talking about. Firing people is really tough, but extremely important.
I'd like to add to what Javier says. I agree with him. Firing people is the hardest thing as an entrepreneur, and it's even harder when it's not because of them, when it's because of you, because you have failed with the funding, or you have to pivot your idea. And I can remember when in 2019 we decided to pivot a bit our strategy, and I had to fire two people. One of them was a really good friend of mine, and she was doing a great job at her position. But this company area didn't make any sense, didn't make sense anymore because of the pivot. So we were forced to fire her, and it's really hard. Like, I think it's the hardest thing, because many times it's not because of the employees, it's because of you or because of the market, but in the end it's because of the founders. So yeah, prepare to that as well.
Thank you very much for all those answers. Our next question comes from Alice Hartley and says, this is for everyone. How to go about knowing who your specific client group is?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that. Could you repeat it?
Sorry. The question is how to go about knowing who your specific client
So
is.
Javier, it says how to go about knowing who your specific client group is. Yeah, I think Antonio.
I think Antonio is cutting out, but I think you all probably heard the question by now.
I can go first if you want, Javier. So I think it's like understanding who your client is or who your target audience is part of the full business model canvas exercise you have to do. So there is a useful exercise called business model canvas, which is kind of a puzzle where you have to fill all the areas that a company needs to take under control, which are the customers, the problem, the channels to get to. Think about a problem you want to solve, or a challenge or an opportunity that might become a business. One thing is the challenge, and the other side of the coin, right, is who is these people? Like, who is the people suffering this challenge? That's it. This is it. So it's not only the challenge, it's not only the customers, it's also the value proposition. It's also how are you going to acquire these customers. It's also what's the cost structure for these operations. It's also about the stakeholders. So I think this exercise is a great way to get to know all these pieces that you have to take into account and to connect together in order to start the company. And it's also important to know that all these pieces are moving parts of the company. I mean, all these things change and evolve with time, either because you grow as a company and you need to find new customers, or either because the market changes. So I think the lean launchpad or the business model canvas are great ways to make the right questions to yourself. And thank you. I think it was Javier, the one sharing the screen. Thank you for that.
That was perfect, Pablo. Nothing to add.
I'll add to that. Well, from a marketing point of view, I think like you really need to know the industry you're working in, and there's a lot of ways to do that. Read the news about it, be on top of it, show how it's changing, look at your trends so you can predict the future. You're as a new project, you're predicting the future, so you need to know it super well, know the cost of things and know how it works. And that will really help you build your business model canvas. But you need to really know the industry. And sometimes it's difficult because it can be opaque. There's loads of information out there. And well, as like researchers, you probably have a very good way of finding information. Use that potential and use that, harness it and focus it towards your industry and know your target really well. Once you know your industry, you'll know all the pieces that work to make it, and you'll know who your client is because it'll become very clear. But without a clear industry knowledge, not only will you not know who your target audience is, you also won't be able to attract the investment you need to launch your idea. So I think it's like a double-edged win if you can get it.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Cristina? Oh. Okay, maybe I'll ask we have another question here. This is from Carlos Perez. Nice talks. Do you think it's possible to combine academia job with entrepreneurship, or there is a time when you have to choose? Thanks.
Well, the answer to that is very, very easy. No. you have to dedicate 100% of your time. Is it 24/7? And I mean, you have to allow a little bit of time to your family and your friends, but it's not possible to do like many professors in Spain are trying to do. They want to use the 10% of their time that the university allows for them to do work outside, to start a company and develop it, and that is just is impossible. I mean, Javier explained clearly what he did. He was at MIT and he was probably having a very, very successful career there, but then left that and went into doing this. So it's 100% of your time. I mean, 120%, I would say.
I think like I agree with Cristina, even though I'm not in academia or I'm in a different industry, but it is a full-time job. It's a lifestyle more than a full-time job. But of course, you can take some steps before jumping in your idea. Of course, you can. I encourage you to make some validation, to do some research, to do these exercises that Clara just told you. Like you have to be able to predict the future, so you have to know the present upside down, right? And you also need to make some connections. All that you can do it on your free time or in parallel, but there's gonna come the day when it doesn't make sense to do both things. It's not that it doesn't make sense, it's just impossible. So I encourage you to make all the validation and take the first steps now that you have your other role or your other position, but there's gonna come the day where doing both things is gonna be just impossible.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would say, because I'm afraid that with that answer, many people will just quit, starting a company or things like that, that you don't need to be the CEO of your own company. You can have a smaller role, but very important. Once again, under promise, over deliver. Don't tell your team that you're going to be doing all of these and then your academic career. Just make sure that you tell your team that I'm just going to do this, but maybe that 10% of your time is going to be very important for the company. So just be honest. You can do both things, but not full time. You cannot be a full professor, having your research lab, and then being the CEO of your company. There's just no time to do all of that. But some of the most famous scientists are founders or co-founders of many companies because they find a way to not be the CEO of their companies, but actually adding value and helping with that. And the other thing I would say, which maybe for junior faculty members in the audience is going to be interesting, is that as I see it, a group leader is an entrepreneur. Look at that. You need to raise money, very competitive money. You need to deliver. You need to hire a team. You need to fire people. You have targets. You have expectations. There is a market that moves. So it has the same characteristics. Just make sure that you don't take money into your pocket and leave the lab. That's the only thing. It's public money. It's not for you. But besides that, being a principal investigator, running a lab has many, not all, but has many similarities with being an entrepreneur. And I'm saying this also just to highlight how ill-prepared we are to run a lab. We have never interviewed people for a position, and we are expecting to run a lab properly. We have never pitched, and we are expected to raise money. And same thing with education. Sorry, I'm so stubborn about that, but you finish your PhD or your postdoc, and suddenly you have learned how to teach? No. So I think during our training as a scientist, we need more education about how to lead, how to run a research group, and then how to teach, which is also a science. There is people that have a full-time job on which are the best practices to actually do effective teaching. and that's something that is not taught during our education. So faculty member, they go from being a student to being educator from one day to the other, and that's just that's just not a good transition. But again, maybe that's for another day.
Okay, maybe we don't have any more open questions. Maybe I can just ask the last question, and then if there is no more, oh, sorry, we actually have one, so I'll probably let the audience ask. Aditya Narayan asks, what are the funding agencies available in the UK, USA, and what are the ways to find it? Javier?
You mean about?
I can see you can talk.
You say agencies. You're meaning public money, right? Like taxpayers' money. Is that what you is that what she's asking?
I'm not sure. Maybe if you want to public, she's saying public.
Okay, public.
Agency.
So I mean, they are very well known. I mean, this the NHF, the NRCS. There is the Science Foundation, Bill Gates Foundation, even the own organization and running the International Union of Chemistry also has money for projects. So there are plenty. I mean, grant agencies. I mean, I guess you need to go also for your own field. Human Frontiers, very generous in terms of biomedical sciences. The International Science Council also offers money. NSF probably the best one known in the US, and also the NIH also very well known, probably the most generous. If you are working in my field, like energy, Department of Energy, again, plenty of money. DARPA, also in the US, providing plenty of resources. So I would say for big projects, those are the ones which are better known.
Anything to add, maybe Cristina and Clara, that you are based in the UK, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said before, go to the technology transfer department, and that should be the first port of call. And then maybe BioTrinity conferences but I mean, many of the universities, UCL has a company that is devoted to the transfer of the technology, and I think Cambridge and Oxford have the same. So if they feel that your idea has value and you have IP to protect it, then they will guide you, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, just to add on that, I'm actually based in Spain now, but a thing that I found here is that a lot of universities have their own investors. Like Este here has a lot of investors, other universities, I'm based in Barcelona, but I know that most business universities, for example, definitely have a VC or like a funding kind of thing. So that's one way to do it. And they're normally kind of business angel type of investors. And if you're going for funding, like Climate Kick is one that we went for. That's special because it's an accelerator, and also because they give you free public money. It's funded by the EU. I believe in the UK there is a Climate Kick. I'm not sure how that's going to work with the with the UK leaving the EU, but I'm sure that there's going to be another alternative in there. So the kicks are really, really good for that as well. They also give you mentors, which is great for pushing your idea, especially at the beginning. And then Innovate UK is also a really good one. Get a grant writer, because they're quite special in the way that they judge you, and you will spend a lot of time trying to write them up. I think that when you're not used to writing for grants, it's a whole process. It's like a 40-50 page document, and I always advise using somebody who knows how to do it, especially in the first ones. Right.
Thank you. So now we have 5 minutes left, so I'll just ask one question, and it's for all of you. Say if you were to look back to the early days of your adventure, was there any mistakes that you could learn from, or what would you have done differently?
I think in our case, we didn't choose the way. It was the medical school, basically, they were the ones choosing the way. And I think it did work very, very well for us, and it took us to where we wanted to get to. So I don't have any regrets of the things we did, or I did learn an awful lot during the time. And obviously, if you were to do it a second time, you may do things differently. But I think you just have to take the opportunities as they come. And I never see obstacles. I always see opportunities. So, and I think that's how I went about it.
Thanks. Clara, you maybe wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, I wanted to say that hindsight is a sweet thing, and that, you know, like you might always think, oh, I could have done that a little bit better, but the important thing is that you learn from it, and that, you know, you don't repeat it the next time. And then, like, I guess if I would have changed something, if I could have changed something, it would have been to like really believe in it before and not be so shy about it, and, you know, reserved, and actually say, you know what, yes, I'm going to do this, and this is what it's worth, and really just believe in it. Because when you're successful, it's a little bit too late to be like, oh, you know what, you weren't doing so bad. So I think that's one of the things that if I could change, I would have done it like that.
I was about to say mostly the same as Clara says. She mentioned before about the imposter syndrome, this feeling that we all have that we are not enough, that we are not the right people. And I think that's the only lesson I will teach the Pablo of the past. Like, believe in yourself, like you are gonna do it. You are like, people changing the world and making huge things are also regular people. Like, it's just people who are trying and that are taking the chance of changing things, right? It's not like you have a superpower or anything special. Like anyone can do it. So I think that's the only thing I will do. And then the other lesson is like, you have to play with the cards that you have. It's like, you have to take the opportunities that you have, not the opportunities that you want to have. So it's like, make the most out of the things that you have in your hand, and keep pushing.
Yeah, so for both of the startups that I mentioned today, both Rife, you know, the Catalyst company, and Celera, my main regret is not having started before, you know, that I wait too long. I mean, the sooner you start, the better. You waste too much time thinking about it, how I'm going to do it, and you learn on the go. And I say, you know, don't waste any time. If you're thinking about starting a company, you know, be serious about that and start doing it. And then the other mistake, and I think we all do that, not only in companies, but also in our daily lives, is that we tend to do what we like to do. And sometimes that is irrelevant work. You know, we just like, you know, to put in our website, you know, the perfect logo, the fonts, and we don't like to, you know, have tough decisions with the team, or, you know, to challenge your technology in a big way. So that's the lesson for life. You know, go first for the toughest task, and then if you have time to play with the little details, that's perfectly fine. But go for the tough first.
Great. Thank you so much for all your answers. I think with that, it's been 2 hours, so we are probably going to give you some time of your evening back. I really want to thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it. I hope it has been really useful for the audience. Thank you to everyone in the audience for hanging with us until the end. The webinar has been recorded, so you should also be able to access it in a few days from the SRUK webpage, the YouTube channel. So the speakers, if you want to distribute that, we will be very grateful. I'd also like to thank Marta for chairing this session and Antonio for helping me manage the Q&A. And yeah, thank you all for everything, and we hope to see you at our next event. Thank you.
Thank you for organizing it. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
Bye.